This is the Cedar Creek Church Living It Out podcast, a midweek reminder where we discuss key takeaways and principles from the weekend message to help you live out the truth that you matter.
Hey, welcome to the Living It Out podcast, a weekly podcast to remind you that you matter and help you live out the truth throughout the week. My name is Ben, and I'm here with Marna today. And Marna, we're just finished Easter weekend. How was your Easter, and what are you celebrating? And
I feel like I'm having these moments where I have to wake up and I'm like, it's April, okay, and it's day 30. Like I'm almost doing this like mental moment of like, okay, we got through Easter. It's April, whatever day it is today.
right, definitely
it's day
not the
30.
Easter we planned, right?
It is not the Easter we planned. I kept telling myself that this is the Easter that God knew we were going to have, but it was nice, but it was weird. It was just still kind of weird. So we kept up some of the same traditions, and we had a nice dinner together, and we did those kind of pieces.
Yeah.
And I'm super grateful for the weekend service because it did help to really keep us focused on what the weekend was. But it was definitely different. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just so thankful for the weekend service, all the things that we saw come out of it. I believe 25,000
Yes.
plus
Yes.
watched the service online or on their phones or TVs or however they took it in. And a great one for one was one of the things we did this past weekend for everyone in attendance. We
Yeah.
gave $1 away, so $25,000 was given to some local charities that went towards
Yep.
supporting food ministries in the area.
Yeah, I
as
think
well.
that's what's so exciting about it is just the opportunity to really provide in those places where, partnering again with people that really understand the needs
Right.
of that local community. And so both United Way here in Greater Toledo and in Hancock County, and then the Tabernacle. So huge cheering for that. And so many people inviting and hosting watch parties and just taking part in it. So that felt like such a collective effort towards not only being able to talk about what we love about Easter, which is the good news of the gospel, but also being able to partner with everyone and helping during this weird season too.
For sure. And I think we had 85 people who, sent in a text saying they made a decision to follow Jesus. And I think, taking that step of, texting it's more than
Huge.
raising a hand or even more than writing something down. It's like communicating, hey, I made a decision to follow Christ. So super excited for that as well.
Oh man, I mean, that is just the Bible's really clear that there's cheers in heaven over that
Right.
as well. But there are few things that get us. I think just it reaffirms our faith, and it helps to build the whole experience of church and just what we all have an opportunity to do together. So we're definitely applauding for those people, and I know our campus teams are working to follow up with them, and so just huge big weekend. As weird as it was, there's a lot to celebrate.
Yeah. For me, personally, just we did some of the normal things on Easter morning. My kids woke up and did some they looked for their Easter basket and found that. We had a ham dinner, all that stuff. So it was weird, like you said, but it was great. At the same time, we did some FaceTime with my parents and my aunt from Florida, who's, really by herself. Just her and her husband are in this house in Florida with, no one around. So it was cool to hang out with her and talk as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the message, when we sat down and watched the message, I think some of the videos up front were just super well done, super great to watch. And then Ben talked about the cross. He talked about the cross and what it really meant to the people who were living back then. Did that jump out to you at all, or what were some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I do think it's helpful to remember that this was not a sign of hope by any stretch of the imagination. I think that's what got me in the moment is that, and I think Ben even talked about this in his Friday prayer focus in the morning, is like we kind of want to
Hmm.
skip over the like suffering part, and let's get to the good news of how this all went down. But starting there for Easter is so important for all of us. One, just the recognition of really the sacrifice that was made, but even the way that he turned it towards what in modern terms for us would have been an electric chair or would have been something just horrific. uh, like why would people put that around their neck? It was not hopeful at all.
Right.
And so I think just the opportunity to return to those spaces, because if we don't, then in so many ways, when we face our own challenges, when things get tough for us, we can kind of forget um, that we have a savior that understands and suffered far more, and went through so much more than we can imagine. So I think all of that is super helpful when it comes to Easter, is that Easter is not just the story of the resurrection, but it's the full sacrifice and what God did through that, and really what Jesus did for us. So so I just appreciate stepping back into that space and going, right, right,
Yeah,
this,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think
yeah. How about you?
yeah, absolutely. I think when Ben talked about it and just like the sights that they were used to seeing when they would walk down the road potentially and look over
Oh
and see,
yeah.
someone who was a criminal, someone who was rising up against the authority of the Roman government, and the smells and just the horrible
Oh yeah.
associations that went with the cross.
Mm,
And then I think Ben, I think maybe you said this too, the electric chair is kind of like our version of like, we would never wear that around our neck or anything.
that's right.
So yeah, but you're right. So right about that does, we need to think about it. We need to go there and be like, okay, this is what he went through for us. Um,
Hmm.
and then you keep talking about like good news, the gospel, the good news of Jesus. Like I think Ben made that turn where he's like, okay, this is what, people thought of when they thought of the cross. This is what Jesus went through. Where's the good news in that? Jesus lived
Yeah.
a perfect life, never sinned, had a perfect faith,
Yes.
and then they crucify him. So what's the good news?
You're absolutely right. Those questions, I think, still pierced me. I mean, we know the whole story, but to just put yourself back in that those are questions that honestly, in many ways, we wrestle with when we face our own trouble and struggle and all of it. So it is just really powerful to think about those places and how we're not all that different from it today, when we think about when we see horrible things happen and we ask ourselves some of those same questions. And yet we know the end of the story, at least this part of it.
Right, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I think,
yeah.
when you're talking about that, like all the pain and the troubles and the sin and the stress and the angst, like he took all of that
Hmm.
when he was on that cross. Like as horrible of a thing as the cross is, like what he was doing up there was taking all that, just the worst of the worst, and bearing it and carrying it for us. And Ben called it the great exchange. He said, that's the great
Hmm.
exchange. He took our hurt, our sin, our troubles, and in exchange we can experience his grace, his forgiveness, and God's righteousness in our own lives. He knew that no matter how hard we tried, no amount of human effort um, could get us there. Like we needed that to happen in order for us to be made right with God. And I think Ben did a
Yeah.
great job talking about that, as far as what he did was something we could have never done ourselves. But a lot of times
Right.
we end up trying. We still find ourselves in this trying versus trusting posture, I think.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I think that there is just as you were even talking about it, these are the places that we even have a hard time admitting to ourselves sometimes. I think there's a spectrum, like we kind of either don't want to deal with that in our own lives, or it becomes the overriding narrative that this is who I am, and it leads almost to kind of a well, it's almost prideful in some ways. We can focus so much on what we're not doing well, and we just want to fix all of it. I just want it to be, and especially, gosh, my personality type, like I just want things to be right. And so it leads us to these places that have us holding on to so much of it on our own, these illusions of that, first of all. But I think it's exhausting and it leaves us empty and we're tired and we get frustrated with ourselves and with other people and we get critical. It's like all the things that rise up in us, that God loved us through all of it. But he recognized too that not only was it our day to day, but obviously this eternity for us, that there was nothing we could do, like you said. So when you think about how vulnerable he was in that space to give us Jesus, and the obedience that Jesus had and the trust in that he had in a father that he reflected always to us. Um, it is so remarkable. I mean, this is even when we talked about last week, where Jesus is like, "Is there any other way? I mean, could
Hmm.
we have done this?" So the same cries of our heart are the cries were the cries of his heart too, and yet he surrendered and trusted God in it for this glorious, remarkable plan that none of us could have even thought possible. So just in the exchange of giving everything, but then also in exchange for that, he really we get to receive so much in the midst of that. So I love that word. Exchange always has like such a like a word picture
Right,
for
right.
me, in my head. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too. Just that picture of, giving him something and then getting something else in return. Like when we give him all that pain and the hurts and the shame, and then for him to give us back the forgiveness and the identity of being his child, or being in relationship and being made right so we can have a relationship with God is just like so amazing. I think he talked about
Yeah.
Matthew 16:24. He kind of talked about these three things. He said, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. I think those are some of the things that we do, as we
Yes.
trust him, and just that giving up your own way. What were some of the things when you think of those three things that come to mind, or ways that we live that out?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that Matthew verse is what supports this exchange. There's such a, if I have to give up and I take up, right there is the visual of what it looks like to go through an exchange.
Hmm.
And ultimately the follow is that the rest of your steps beyond that look different because that exchange happened at the beginning. So I think sometimes we try and do this reverse. We just figure, I think Nate Locke, sort of the story that we heard this weekend, it was almost like that, where we'll kind of do some things to follow, and there's like a few things we're okay with, and so we'll kind of start the follow a little bit, but there's been no exchange happened yet. I'm still trying to kind of do it my way, and I'm sort of dabbling in some of that, but I think Jesus was so clear here that this was not a reverse order situation. There is a give up and a take up and a follow. And I think he was communicating so much in the order of things that when we make those exchanges, then the following comes from a different heart and a different place. It's not trying any longer to earn those things that we felt like, well, I can't just give up this and take up that. I got to do something. There's something I've got to try and do here. And the reality is that he gave it all to us, and that us receiving that grace and picking those things up, setting down our own way, picking up what he's given us, and then following him in that. I've seen it play out over and over in my own life as to what that has really looked like. That if I get that in the reverse order, I find myself in that trying space of just frustrated and not sure why it's not working out. And I thought it
Yeah.
was supposed to look like this. So how about you?
Yeah, well, I think when you said that, you find yourself over and over in those places. I think it's just a reminder that this is a daily thing that we do, right? It's like
Yes.
daily realizing, okay, I'm going to give up control. I'm going to surrender my trying and give it to God and just trust that he's already done everything that I need, or he's already provided those things that I'm striving for. So that really just stood out to me when you said you find yourself over and over in those places, because I do as
Yeah.
well. And just having to remind myself, okay, today's the day that I'm gonna, you know, again, give up control. And I think for me, one of
Yes.
those things that's been super helpful throughout this season of COVID-19 are the mornings that Ben's been on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, as far
Hmm.
as the prayer for today. And he's been leading people in prayer, and I think it's just a great opportunity for each of us. And if you haven't done this, I want to invite you to jump on social media in the morning, 7:30, and just kind of spend some time with Ben in prayer and just say, okay, today I'm going to focus on this prayer. I'm going to give up control and trying to do
Hmm.
things my way and let God take over. So I thought that was
Yeah.
something that stood out to me
I
as
love it.
well.
I think so too, Ben. And what I love about that is that sometimes it's that it can be simple. Like I'm going to get up 10 minutes earlier in order so that my morning coffee is done, and I'm going to do that live. Or I'm going to pull my family together to do it twice a week. So sometimes I feel like the give up and take up is as much a process as is the follow. Like some of this starts to really play um, into each other. So if I get up 10 minutes earlier and I'm giving up 10 minutes of sleep, I'm picking up starting my day with God's word. And then throughout my day, if I can come back to those spaces when I feel myself kind of getting back in the like, even if it's just that we're stressed, it doesn't even have
Mhm.
to be that I'm necessarily trying to control things, although I think that's our nature, but just when I'm not feeling like the day is maybe going well or I've hit a new challenge, can I come back to those places? I think that follow is so much a part of what we get to do throughout the day. So over and over I find myself in those places, but over and over that's where God calls me to trust him again. And it's such a process. That's why it's follow. I mean, he didn't give us a word that was like a noun. It's not like and you have arrived. Like it's
Right.
it's a verb, man. You got to work that thing out, and that's okay. That's part of what grows us and matures us and helps us to get through something like what we're all going through right now. And it's not easy. It's not always easy at all.
Yeah, that's great. I think one thing that's came to mind when you were talking was just that story of Nate, Nate Locke, who shared
Mm.
his story throughout the Easter
Yeah.
service. There was like a decision point that he was in the car, and it was like, okay, I can either go
Mm.
hang out with this girl tonight, or I have an opportunity to go spend some time with some guys who are just have a great relationship, and they're striving to know God more. And it was like almost this, okay, I have a choice today, and I think we're all given those choices. Ultimately, the big choice of, are we going to trust Jesus and follow him, or are we going to try to, obtain all, happiness and joy and peace on our own? And I think really
Yeah.
for Nathan, it was almost that point. He's like, I'm gonna trust and follow God in this moment, because I feel like he's leading me to go hang out with these guys. And ultimately,
Yeah.
that decision brought him wholeness in his life. And I think we're always encountering those decisions, big and small, like that, where we have an opportunity to
Yes.
trust and try as well. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I thought he captured that really well of just what all that whole process can look like for someone for him it was a particular stage, like in his early 20s or late teens to early 20s. For some of us it's a different spot in life, or maybe it's something really big that we're dealing with that we know that we've been headed sort of away from God on some things, and we've been picking up things and slowly kind of drifting away. And I just Easter is such a reminder, I think, of what it looks like to really just come back to this place of really understanding who Jesus is and what he accomplished, and that we can come back to this. There's not like an expiration date, right? Of like, well, and now you're too late. So I'm just so grateful for whether it's big or small that we all have an opportunity to do that. So
For sure. I think at the end of the service, Ben gave a really great practical step for those people who are really making a first time decision to trust Jesus. And again, we want to offer that to you. Like if you've maybe made that decision this past weekend and you just stumbled upon this podcast and but you didn't, let us know. We still want you to take a moment and let us know you made that decision to trust Jesus and follow him. Martin, do you know what can they do if they've made that decision?
Yep. So the number was 419-419-0707. And when you text that number, once you plug it in, so 419-419-0707, and you can text the word decided, then what you'll do is get a link back from us, and it really just gives us an opportunity to celebrate with you. We're not going to do anything weird, we promise, and we just want to pray for you, and if there's anything that we can do to help you take a step on the journey, we certainly want to be available to you to do that. And if there's somebody in your life that made that decision, encourage them to do that. There's something about these tangible steps that help cement it kind of in our own hearts, that it's not for God, but I think there's something in the midst of that for us too. So I think that would be great encouragement to somebody in your life if they had, if they made that decision this weekend or really any time in this last season.
For sure. I think, as we're going through this as well, there's just more opportunities for us to take steps of trusting God. And even though we're not meeting together in the building physically, there's still a lot of next steps that we can all take. Some of those are groups, online groups. That's a step of trust for sure. I think because sometimes we're trying to get through things on our own, and the best way to get through those things are to get in community with other people and to be in a group and to start taking off the mask. So we do have online groups. If you're interested in being in a group, cedarcreek.tv/groups is a great way to do that. We also have Growth Track going on, online Growth Track. We jumped into at the beginning of this month. Marnie, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Growth Track is really designed to help you understand the spiritual journey and what it looks like to take first steps towards discovering purpose. And we really have to understand the whole journey in order to be able to step into purpose. So we have week 3 that's happening online, cedarcreek.tv/growth track. You can register. You have to kind of register by week so you get the links from us, but you can step into Growth Track anytime. And it really, I can't think of a better season to do it. And I think you're right, Ben, it helps you to kind of identify, like, we all have next steps to take no matter what the season looks like externally. There's all of these things that we can do. So we would love to have you. Each campus is hosting Growth Track. We've got Dream Team members who we're just super excited about, and they are excited to serve you. So if that's not a step that you've taken, we would definitely invite you into that. So
very good. Well, we just hope you guys had a great Easter, enjoyed the service. We hope you're growing and taking steps and trusting him. We do have another service obviously coming up. We're starting a brand new series called Rise. So be looking for that. And again, we'll be online this weekend. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you guys have a great week as you continue to live out and trust God.